Are the mics? There, that's better. I got it. Welcome back. Thank you. I know Wendy is off sick and Pastor Colts had a child care issue. And so I know we're down a couple that we knew about, but it's about 10 minutes after we said we were going to start. So at this point, I'm going to go ahead and get started. People can wander in. I want to be respectful of your time. So we will go ahead and get started. If you were here last time, I wanted to remind you a little bit that we're going to start with a lot of these global issues, the things that are overarching throughout the city, and try to come up with some policy thoughts about where and how we would deal with each of these areas. The one we're going to start with tonight is delinquent tax property. We'll then move on to specific stuff about individual neighborhoods, individual streets, things like that. How are we going to redesign neighborhoods? How are we going to select neighborhoods? Things like that. And eventually we'll get down to which neighborhood are we going to do and how are we going to do it and what's that going to look like and what's it going to cost. One of the things that council politely reminded me, and I want to make sure that I get that message out as well, is that we are here to recommend policy to council. We're going to do everything we can to be smart and good and fair and everything else. But at the end of the day, this will go to city council. They're the ones that approve the policy. They're exactly right. And I did not make that incredibly clear last time. Hopefully we do something so smart that it makes it easy for them to say yes. But ultimately it is their choice. I will try to keep these meetings around an hour and a half or less. I will say, however, if we're in the middle of a subject, I'll probably ask you, it's 7 o'clock. I want to be respectful of your time. Do we want to keep talking or do we want to shelve this for tonight and we'll bring it back in 2 weeks and we'll get started again? But my plan is to keep it somewhere around an hour and a half for each time. Subject, again, to us deciding we want to do something. I did have a request, which I granted to Wanda Glover as part of the Second Ward Community Council. She asked if she could join the group, and I told her that was fine. Hopefully she'll come. She's supposed to be here today. So she'll be joining us. The other thing that we've done over the last couple of weeks, and it was just put up about 3 hours ago, is we created a web page on the city web page. If you go to the cityofmiddletown.org and you go to the city manager portion of the page, there's a, can you pull that web page up for me? There's now a web page that is for housing policy. It's going to have the videotape of all these meetings, including what we're doing. They get to hear the discussion. It'll have all the PowerPoints. It'll have all the articles that I'm giving you. Everything that you're seeing and hearing will be available on that web page, and you will be able to go and listen, watch, read. There's also email. If you have any comments, good, bad, ideas, anything at all, you can email me and say, I love what you're doing, I hate what you're doing, I think this is dumb, I think we could do it better, here's my idea. It's wide open. So that everybody can get a chance to add their input into the process.
I'm going to walk you through it.
Okay.
So you go to the city website, government, departments. There we go. City manager and housing.
It's got a little intro paragraph. It's got the members of the committee, which I probably need to add Wanda to. I don't remember if she's on there or not. And there will be links then to all of the different pieces. Again, all the videos of each of these meetings. They'll get to hear the discussion all the way through. And we'll have that up and running now. Wanted to talk a little bit more. As we go through this, I'm going to present this in a way from my point of view. We're going to talk about it from your point of view as well, but when I look at this, I'm at 10,000 feet and I'm looking at the city. My job is to make the city prosperous. My job is to reduce crime. My job is to get infrastructure repaired, on and on. I'm up here looking down at all of Middletown, looking globally kind of at what's going on. And so a lot of the things I'll show you is from my point of view. This is how I see it. This is why this looks like it's a problem to me. What I need from each of you is to use your discipline, whatever it is, builder, remodeler, banker, landlord, whatever, community member, whatever your expertise is, I need you to take what I'm showing you and say, yeah, but what about what I know about? Because that's why we're here, is to get all of us on the same page, get us all, and I don't want the best idea that Doug can come up with. I want the best idea that the community can come up with that moves us all forward. So we will continue to do that. What else? New articles that I'm going to give you, and you'll find that I'm a voracious reader. If I can find anything, and these often come across my desk, and I just go ahead and copy them and bring them on because they have various relevance to whatever we're working on. Tonight, and again, these will all be on the webpage in a day or two, a nice vision for reinvention cities. I think there was an article in the Journal a day or two ago about this. It's a nice discussion of cities our size, the Springfields, the Limas, the Middletowns, the Mansfields, those types of cities, the problems that they've had as other cities, Columbus has gotten bigger and others like that, and what they believe, this group believes, are the policies that should be enacted at the state level to start turning these our size cities around. And so again, it's interesting reading, probably 10 or 15 minutes. These are all for you. You can choose to read them, not read them, totally up to you. We've been, part of what we're going to be talking about is what do we do to the people that are impacted by all of the things we're going to talk about. A couple nice articles I got, and this is literally over the last 2 weeks. Planning with an equity lens to make cities more fair. Redevelopment without displacement. Again, nice articles. You can take as long as you want to or not and read them, but it's interesting perspective of what other communities across the country have done in some of these areas. And so again, I will continue to, as I see things, grab them, make copies, so that as we're talking, you can use that or not use that as you choose to go along. The other thing when we're talking about at the 10,000 foot level, I'm always looking at how other people are viewing us, whether it's the region, the state, nationally. This one happens to be Moody's. This is who does our bond rating. If you're not familiar with that, bond rating affects what it costs us to borrow money as a city. Our bond rating has gone down twice, I think, in the last 5 years or so. And what that means is they consider us a higher risk, which means as a city, when we go make large loans to do paving or whatever it is we're going to do, we're going to pay a higher interest rate because just like you, if you're a higher risk, you're going to pay more on your interest. When you look at the new one, which I have to have my glasses to do, economy and tax base. Overall, the economy and tax base is solid. The full value of per capita rather, the full value of housing at $38,685 is significantly below the U.S. median, as is the median family income at 69% of the U.S. level. Those are the way they're looking at us and trying to determine whether or not our tax base is sustainable. Therefore, our revenues are sustainable. Therefore, we have the ability to pay back any loans that they're going to make us. So these are the types of things when I'm looking at them, and I highlighted on the second page, our total value, they have us as weakened, value per capita, weakened, available fund balance, weakened, net cash balance, weakened, pension liability, which has to do with OPERS and all that, which we don't have any control over, weakened. But when we're trying to look at our city, we're trying to say, okay, this is what the financial people across the country think of us. These are the things they find concerning about us, and what things should we be doing not only in housing but in other areas to start strengthening that position so that our bond rating will go back up and our cost to borrow capital to do good things will go down. So again, I see these things, all of these came across my desk since our past meeting. So as I see things like this, as they come across my desk, I'll continue to make copies, I'll continue to get them out to you. And again, the idea is the more knowledge we have, the more we have to talk about, the more we can talk about why these things make sense to us and why we should take action. These are, yes sir.
Your report there from Moody's, did our weakening start around 2008 or was it prior to that?
It was around 2008, wasn't it, Mayor?
They don't look at
No,
So it's, but yet there's been,
I think it's 2 downgrades as I remember it.
It's 2010, 2013, and then 2015.
Something like that. And so again, and this is not an actual reevaluation and look at but it's just a, hey, how are you guys doing? Look, in between the last time they actually did something with our rating and the next time, this is just is there anything we need to be watching on? And this is what we like and this is what we don't like when we look at you real quickly. So another thing, as we're going through these, I love to read, again, Confronting Suburban Poverty, Small Town Sustainability. This is all kinds of stuff in Europe that has been done. Interesting stuff, interesting. Greening communities, gardens, landscaping, streetscape, creating safer, livable communities through planning and design. Lots of cool pictures and stuff. I get these things, I read them, I incorporate them into what we're doing. Again, the idea is to give us the best practices being done all over the country so that we have at least a chance to talk about whether or not they would be applicable in Middletown. And with that, we'll go on to tonight's PowerPoint. The first item we're going to look at is tax delinquent property. We have in this community right now 1,276 parcels. This is from the April list from the auditor's office in Butler County. Those 1,276 parcels, which are in red, owe us right now almost $2 million in delinquent property taxes. To get on that list, you have to be at least 1 year behind on your property taxes, which means, again, you've got 1,276 houses that are more than a year behind. They owe us $6.2 million. I asked staff, because we actually have, this was generated by the actual address list and parcel list. So from then I said, okay, can we do some more analysis? What's going on with water? And they said, well, actually 374 of these 1,276 parcels have accounts with water balances that are more than 60 days past due, and they currently owe us almost $50,000 in back water. They have 137 accounts that have filed income tax. Of those 1,276, they filed their income tax, but they haven't paid any of it, and they owe us $67,000 in delinquent income tax. There are 304 of these properties that have filed no income tax returns over the past 2 years, and I literally, this is not a real number, I just took the median income times 1.75% times 2 years. There's some number of hundreds of thousands of dollars sitting out there, and that's all in addition to the $6.2 million on delinquent property taxes. So the problem becomes, if you are delinquent on your property taxes, and if you owe us income tax, and if you owe us water, and if your house is not up to property maintenance code compliance, do you think there's any chance that you're ever going to get caught up? And the answer probably is almost always no. And so then the question becomes, what do we start doing about this situation? I will tell you this. Go ahead, if you would, blink us on.
one question.
Yes, sir.
Did we look at whether or not these were owner-occupied or?
They are all over the place. They are vacant land, they are vacant houses, they are occupied houses, they are rentals, out-of-town rentals, in-town rentals. They are literally all over the place. So again, I can tell you that the income tax, obviously if it's a vacant house, we weren't going to get any income tax anyway. That's exactly right. The delinquent income tax, they filed, they owe us. The water, they owe us. The delinquent, they owe the county. So go ahead if you would, please. And so it's not just us. That 6.2, if you spread it out, where does all that money go? If we got it, where would it go? And the answer is the bulk of it goes to the school district. There's 4.5 million of that 6.2 million that is due that would go to the school district if it had been collected. And so, the thing I always look at is in 5 years when they finally come to you and say, we've got the schools up and running, everything's going pretty well, but we need a new operating levy. You might have waited another year or two if you had that $4.5 million that had been coming in. City's portion is about $600,000. The county gets $750,000. All the others, the library, the senior center, all the other stuff in there, grouped together, $282,000. And here's the thing about this: if they're not going to be able to pay this back, What this really means is we've lost this. We've lost this. It's the opportunity cost. If we had had it, what could we have done with that money? Because the answer is they're way behind and they're probably never going to pay it. So what you're going to have to do, go ahead please. Typical pathways, you file tax foreclosure against them. And what that typically does is they file a tax foreclosure on tax delinquent property. Property owner has a period of time that they can redeem the property and get on a payment plan. If they do that, it comes off foreclosure, or if they pay it off, it comes off foreclosure. If they don't, the property is foreclosed, and the land bank, the Butler County Land Bank, can take title to that property. And now I have title to this empty house that is behind on taxes. They then wipe out the taxes, and they clean the title to it, which means now I have marketable title as the Butler County Land Bank. I can do something with this house. And so then, the only thing that is not removed is federal liens. Once the land bank has removed the liens and title, it can be donated to the city. We can renovate it, we can demolish it, we can do whatever we want to do with it. Again, that's why we're here, is if we're going to do these types of things, as we get down the road, the next one after this is vacant houses. The next one after this is vacant land. When we start to get these, as we get further down this process, we'll say, when we get one of these like this, we know that we want to do this to it. If it's 3-bedroom and it's vacant and it's in this condition, we're going to renovate it and do this to it. And that's the idea, is as you'll see as these go along, they start building on each other. But the first question is, do we walk these things through and start clearing them out? Go ahead, please. Columbus Area Land Bank. I will tell you this, we operate one of the, how am I going to say this? Underutilized, that's a great word, thank you. Underutilized land banks in the state of Ohio. There are, I think, around 20 land banks. I have actually gone up and spent a day at Cleveland, Toledo, and Warren, a day at each of their land banks. We do, the least of any land bank in Ohio. We have only used the land bank for demolition to this point. Columbus Land Bank has been operating for, looks like in the last 5 years. They've done $8 million in land sales, generated $442,000 in new property taxes, protected $90 million in home values by getting properties back on the tax roll again, $80 million in proposed reinvestment around areas where they have been doing their work, loans or grants awarded to nonprofits, 1,600 properties demolished. They have been very active in Columbus, taking those delinquent properties and doing something that they believe to be productive to do it, whether they clear the land or whether they renovate the house, whatever, they've taken a very active step. Go ahead. Cleveland is the one I spent a lot of time with. I've literally went up there and captured every piece of paper I could get from them. They are the gold standard in land banks for the state of Ohio. They have now acquired their 4,000th property. They've demolished 2,500 of them. They've renovated almost 900 of them. They have been operating, they literally have a staff of 20-some people because they have so many, they have hundreds of properties under their title at any given time.
How do they achieve their money to be able to renovate?
I will get to that in a minute. Go ahead. So the question is, do we start tax foreclosures on these? We will have to work with the Butler County Prosecutor's Office. We'll have to work with the Land Bank. I am the vice chair of the Land Bank. We have been working with the Butler County Commissioners on these issues with the Land Bank. I believe we've made a lot of inroads, and one of the reasons we're doing this process is I want to be able to go to Don Dixon and T.C. Rogers and say, we have to have this tool in our tool bank, and here's what we're going to do with it, and here's why we're using it, and here's where we're using it. Here's what the value is, not only to Middletown, but to the county as a whole. At those property taxes, we will start collecting them again in some fashion, whether we build a new house as an infill, whether we clear out and demo and protect other properties, whether we renovate the house and put a taxpayer back in it. This is good for the county. You need to let us expand the use of that. We'll do all the work. All you need to do is just let us do it. And I think we've made a lot of our inroads with Don and TC. And as we get this done, and council says, we're going to do this, then we take it to them and go, here's the whole thing. There's really no sense for you not to do it. It's not going to cost you anything. You don't have to spend any time on it. All you have to do is stay out of our way. We can do this in-house.
What is their reasoning for being underachievers, if you will?
I'm not sure I'm going to say that on video.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't think they want to build it to be a big, I mean, they're
Part of it's a bureaucracy issue. Part of it is, I think Don's a investor and has certain views on whether or not we should be taking those out of the private market. I would suggest to you that the private market is failing. And, you know, I have always said government is what's left when the private market fails and there's no money to be made on something. When there's something that needs to be done and there's no way to make a profit on it, that's when we get it. Right or wrong. And so I do think Don has softened that stance. When we started the land bank, when we were doing Moving Ohio Forward back 7, 8 years ago, it was a very different, all those foreclosures were coming through and he wanted a lot of people, investors, to have access to those and not to pull them out of the market into the land bank. I think as time has gone on and we've done a good job of managing demolition grants and doing other stuff, I think he has softened that position. I also think he starts to understand we're at 50% rental. How many more do you want to give them? We have another 1,276. We're going to make them all rentals for investors? That doesn't make any sense. And I think, and Don's a smart guy. And so I think he is starting to understand those types of, those arguments better, especially when you bring the data to him. It's one thing to anecdotally say, we have too much rentals. No, we have too much, and this is what it does to us, and this is what Moody says, and this is, he listens. And so I think we're making progress. If we're going to do tax foreclosure, we talked about our model of starting with vacant property, working with out-of-town landlords. If you're an out-of-town landlord and you're collecting rent and you're not paying property taxes, I don't care about you. I don't care. Now, we will have to talk about the renter. But local landlords, when the property is vacant, if it's vacant, why not go after it for tax foreclosure now? Then you're not kicking anybody out. You're not doing anything. And there will be some number of homeowners in this process. When we get to, go ahead, please. However, as we get to some of these other areas, what if it's a 2-bedroom house in our identified industrial buffer down the road with $10,000 in code enforcement issues in a high crime area, and they're tax delinquent, and. We will essentially at some point get to homeowners in that situation. At that point, the question is, do we still move forward? And if we do, how do we help them transition to something that's a better work for them? Because again, they're never going to catch up, almost certainly. Go ahead, please. So, what are our foreclosure options? If we got it and we have this house now, we can rehabilitate it and sell it to a homeowner. Again, we'll look at, is it 2-bedroom? Is it under 800 square feet? Is it what? Again, we'll talk about all those different criteria. Is this house make sense to renovate? I'm going to ask you at some point when we talk about these houses, if the cost to renovate it is more than 30% of the value, should we do it? If the cost to renovate is more than 50% of the value of the house, should we do it? If the house is 2-bedroom, does it make any sense in this situation to add a third so it's more competitive? We'll talk about all those as we get down the road, but one of the things we can do if we get those houses is we can rehabilitate it and put it back, make it attractive again, sell it to a homeowner. We could, if it's a pass-through, let's say the house is in good shape, they just can't afford it. House is solid. We can take that thing, put it back on the market, sell it to somebody who can afford the taxes, afford to pay income tax, do their stuff. We can just pass it on through. Demolition or green space, industrial or infill. We will talk at some point about consolidating lots. If I've knocked down 3 houses out of 5 on a street, and the other 2 have an issue, does it make more sense to add 3 homes in, or do we knock down 2 more and make 3 houses on 5 lots so that we have nicer yards? I don't know. We'll see. We'll talk. Probably going to depend on where and why. Why are we doing it? You had asked about renovating houses and how it works with the land bank. One of the coolest things that the land bank does, and Cleveland has done this incredibly well, and I have all their paperwork, all their contracts, all their vetting. And what they do is they will take a house that we say is worth rehabbing. And they will say, Mr. Bohannon, I have this house and I have a clean title to it and there's no taxes and no liens. And I'm going to sell that house to you for $5,000. And I'm going to put a 6-month reverter on your title. You're going to give me a check for $5,000. I'm going to use that check to initiate and pay for some more of the foreclosures. So I'm going to use that for productive stuff that we're doing behind the scenes. Mr. Bohannon, I'm going to ask you to put a new roof on the house. I'm going to ask you to put new windows in the house, new HVAC, the big ticket items, paint. We'll come to an agreed list. I'm going to ask you to put, let's say that house is worth $50,000 right now. You pay me, I'm going to ask you to put another 20 into it to get it up to the standard that you and I agree. Standard the city agrees it needs to be, standard you say I can do and still make money at. So you now put 20,000, you now have 25,000 in the house. Let's say the house went from 50,000 to 60,000. I'm pulling numbers out of the air. House is now worth 60,000. You have to list it with a Middletown area realtor, local guy. You have to sell it to a homeowner. So, and when the profits come, you pay the realtor his commission. You keep the profits. I don't want them. And so that $60,000 house, you take out 7%, your 25 that you got into it, and you're walking away, what, 20 grand in your pocket? I have a homeowner that can afford the house. They're paying property taxes, they're paying income taxes, it's occupied, it's ready to go. Cleveland has done hundreds of these, and they work. And they have only had one default in the last 5 years because they have vetted they go, we love flippers, but we love house flippers who can do the work. And we vet them. Do they have the ability to do the work? Do they have the financing to be able to do what they need to do? And so they have a list of 15 flippers, contractors, whatever you want to call them. And it works. The realtors line up and go, I'd like one of those.
You know if they bond those people?
I think they do. I think they do. But I've got all the paperwork on how they vet them. I've got all the contracts that you would sign as a contractor. I've got all the realtor stuff. I mean, I've literally got the entire package. They said, if you do it like this way, you almost can't go wrong. And so those are the type, but again, which houses are we going to renovate? Let's make sure, that's again, we got to get to that piece down the road of, well, it's 2-bedroom. Well, maybe. I mean, there might be some, for 2-bedroom, not a lot, but maybe if anything else on the house, street's in good shape, maybe we renovate that last one just to make the whole street look good. But now we know why we're doing it. So these are the types of things we would do. The city would start to work with the Butler County Prosecutor's Office. We would probably fund the filing fee. We would probably litigate a lot of the cases. We would then work them through the land bank. We would then take title to them. And then again, at the end of this process, when we've gotten through to the other end and said, if it's like this, we demolish it. If it's like this, we fix it up. If it's like this, we just put a sale sign in with a local realtor and sell it in books. That's how we move forward. Go ahead, please. You do it by neighborhood, consistent with whatever planning model. Not only would we say globally, if it's a 2-bedroom, do we want to renovate it? But we would also say, we're doing renovations in this neighborhood. There's 18 properties in this neighborhood that fit our thing. What are we doing specifically with these 18 as a part of our neighborhood renovation project? We know we're renovating these 10 streets. How do those 18 tax delinquent properties that we've seized, how do they fit into our specific plan for that neighborhood? And then the question becomes, if we're unwilling to do that, what's the alternative? Because you are losing $6 million right now, and they're just going to sit there predominantly. And others will join it. A few others will get paid. A few others will go through tax foreclosure. But this is not a couple hundred issue. This is 1,000 homes in Middletown that have this issue right now. They're more than more than 1 year behind. And so, if we're unwilling to do this, and in the past, again, when I look at this and people say, oh, you're hurting the homeowners, you're hurting all these people, you're hurting poor people, you're hurting minorities, you're doing all this stuff, and I look at it, again, at 10,000 feet and go, yeah, but look at all the red, and look at that $6.2 million. I'm supposed to be paving your streets. I'm supposed to be putting recreation back in your parks. I need that money. And and right now there's no hope I'm going to get it in the future until we take some action to make it happen. And so, go ahead, please. I started with just a sample policy, and this is where I will start the discussion after we do this. When I put these up there, this is a starting point for discussion. This is not Doug saying this is where we're going. This is me saying, here's something we could start talking about. Do you like it? Do you hate it? Well, the third sentence, I think you should strike it. All right, let's talk about that. As part of overall housing goals, the city of Middletown will initiate tax foreclosure in an organized, sustainable fashion. Again, I couldn't initiate 1,000 foreclosures if I wanted to. I don't have the funds. I don't have the staff to litigate it. The courts would lose their mind if I suddenly threw 1,000 foreclosures on them. But what we can do is we can start with the vacant property. Again, as we know where we're trying to go and where we're trying to start, we can do them in batches. Requests will be completed at least intrusive to most intrusive. We'll start with vacant property. We'll start with out-of-town landlords. We'll work our way down the list. We'll be consistent with the overall housing policy and other global recommendations. Property received from the Butler County Land Bank through tax foreclosure will be placed back into productive use, consistent with the other portions of this policy regarding vacant housing and vacant land, which means as we know what we're doing with vacant houses, as we know what we're doing with vacant lots, as we know what we're doing with the 2 or 3 neighborhoods we're going to try to renovate, as we get these foreclosed, we will plug them in to what we've already said we want to do. And so the question is there any reason we should not start tax foreclosure, especially on the vacant? There's going to be a lot, on every one of these, there's going to be a whole lot of low-hanging fruit. You know, when we get to next week, there's theoretically 3,000 empty housing units in the city of Middletown still after the recession. Rental, homeowner, stuff. Well, there's 3,000 I can start with that are vacant. So, and the ones that are also vacant and tax foreclosed, that would seem to be the logical place to start working on the problem. I will tell you, somewhere down the road, you know, we get 1,000 of these done, those last 276 are going to be homeowners. And we'll have to, again, hopefully get down the road and just talk about, once we're into neighborhoods and once we're into houses, and we're talking about how we can take people and help them get into things they can afford, hopefully we have already answered the question down the road of how can we help them get out of this situation into something where they're happy, they're in Middletown, and they're paying their bills. Yes, sir.
Curious, why the vacant land? I mean, that's definitely low-hanging fruit, but
Yep.
why would you go after that?
Because we're mowing it anyway. So yeah, we'll get to it about the third one out, but what you're going to find is we knocked down about 500 houses over the last 10 years. I'm now mowing 500 lots forever at a cost of $250,000 a year. That's kind of a dumb policy. I don't know what the right policy is, but I can tell you mowing them forever is dumb.
Okay, now, those are the ones that the city owns.
Well, we don't necessarily have power to them.
We own very few of them.
Because our policy was not to,
Our policy was not to own them.
Gotcha.
council didn't want to take on ownership of the property. So it's, these are
But the,
kind
yeah,
of the phantom or the ghost
Yeah.
properties. whatever
they're the ghost properties. They're, you know,
I think that we should go more so toward the absentee landlords. If nothing else, it might send a message out there to the absentee landlords that Middletown's starting to crack down. And if you owe taxes on your property, you better get it into compliance or you're gonna lose the sucker.
yep. I don't have an issue with that at all.
Like Dan is saying, vacant land, I mean, it's like, you know, in this neighborhood,
Yep.
what good does it do us, other than the fact that now we own it, and then we've already said we don't wanna own it. So let's get,
Well-
I would argue that there may be cases where we might want to own it if we can be strategic about.
well, that's what I'm getting at.
There's
If
buffer.
we went through the landlord, absentee landlords, and there's an absentee landlord on either side of a vacant lot,
Right.
now maybe we might have some maneuverability where we can turn that one little tiny lot that we can't even build on into one big lot that we can put a nice house on.
Yeah. Or 2 houses on 3 lots or whatever. Whatever makes sense.
Yeah.
And that's what my hope is as we move forward. As we talk through this, then we go to vacant houses and we go to vacant land, and then we talk about some of these other things. As we start to get to about that 5th one, Well, when we foreclose on this, we know now what we should be doing. It's two-bedroom, it's this. When we see one of those, we do this. And that's where I'm hoping to get us to. That's as we start. I don't disagree with that. To your question, I don't want to mow those 500 lots through the end of time. That's just a dumb, But the question is, do you make them into little pocket parks? Do you, if neither person on either side wants it, I mean, I've seen places where you create recreation trails. Vacant lot, recreation trail through the alley, on down to 15th, on to 16th, on to 17th, on to 18th. You put recreation stuff down the way. There's all kinds of stuff. I've got 20 different things you can do with vacant lots. And if we're going to own it forever and mow it forever, let's do something other than leave it sitting there as an empty tooth. Let's do something with it to make it enhance the neighborhood if we can't get rid of it, or we can't consolidate, or we can't give it to a neighbor, or we can't put a house on it. We should do something other than just mow it blindly forever.
So those costs for mowing are going against the lot or whatever?
It is.
There's a point where you can't buy the lot because of the cost of it.
But if I got control of it, I can waive my own fees. I can waive my own liens. Now, I can't waive, well, actually, I can waive somebody else, but why would I want to? If you haven't paid if you didn't pay for the demolition and you didn't pay for anything and you haven't been paying on it, again, but if somebody says, I could do something productive with that, well, then again, seize it, take it through the land bank, wipe off our liens, put it back into productive use, whatever that is, whatever we decide that should be.
Have we been looking at anything for zoning for some of these vacant lots?
I didn't hear, I'm sorry.
Zoning,
As far as,
as far as structure size, houses?
we haven't, we've not done a lot with it because we wanted to kind of get through this process. Question is, how dense do we want to go? And where we've cleared out a lot of land, does it make sense to build small homes back in there? Or should the policy be, again, and we've not talked about it, should the policy be, no, we're never going to put an 800-foot two-bedroom bungalow back? Again, maybe never, but maybe if the whole rest of the neighborhood's good, you do want to put one in. Maybe not. But no, I don't think we have, because I don't think we've gotten this far down the process as of why would we do that? Why would we not do that? Where should we put houses in? What should they look like to be competitive? Not now, but hopefully over the next 30, 40, 50 years. If you're going to build a house there, it's a 70-year opportunity or problem, depending on what you build.
I'm thinking, I'm asking, as we talk about the definition of delinquent being 2 years, approximately what percentage or what kind of numbers and amounts when we get into this, as we're going through this process, we're gonna add some more houses. So at what rate are we adding additional delinquent properties so that our $6 million number is, in 6 months is gonna be what? I mean, are there more coming down the pipe?
As far as new houses coming online, or
Being more than 2 years delinquent?
I don't have that information.
Okay, no problem.
The auditor can give me what's subject to, but at least I've never asked for it in that way, as how many more are coming. And then the answer will be, this many are coming, but how many will pay before they jump onto the list?
And perhaps our policy will get us some additional motivation
Correct.
for not being in the 2
Yeah, if you feel, if you have paid, if you can pay and you have chosen not to, yeah, I can give you some quick motivation. I'm going to take it away from you. Yeah.
Does the auditor have any historical information? Because I think maybe that's the point to get to is, what's the trend line over time? Has it been 1,276 for 5 years, or has it gone from, 500 to 700 to?
Individually, I can look that up because it'll give me what's on the front of the auditor's page. It'll say you're $8,000 behind. If you pull back on there and you click on each year, it will tell you by year. But it's a tedious process, but it can be done not globally easily. But if you want to know about 612 Smith Street, I can tell you specifically on that by looking at the auditor's site. They haven't paid for 3 years, 4 years, whatever, 2 years, but not.
I didn't know if they had a snapshot for you where we could look at April.
I've never heard of.
April 16 and say, this is where we were. Oh, I mean, we've got a benchmark now,
Yeah.
April of 19 and see if they're going up or going down or more of added in or not. I mean, that's kind of what I understood.
Well, and that's something that I can ask the auditor. If we can get the question framed correctly, I can, the data is usually pretty easy to query if you ask the right question. And so if we can ask the right question, I can go back to the auditor and say, I know this is everything that's more than a year. Could you give me everything that's whatever, 6 to 12 months? So that we know that in 6 months, this is what theoretically could be coming online. But again, anybody that gets on a payment plan or pays, well, they'll come off that list. But it would give us, again, another piece of data to know there's 300 coming. Whether all 300 of them make it in 6 months, we don't know. But it would give us a benchmark of some kind.
So that whatever policy we establish, as we publicize it, will let people know
Yeah.
that
Yes, sir.
next time you get your
So
tax.
as we tear these lots down, these houses down, what is the city doing after they tear them down other than mowing them? So do we sell them to the owners or left and right of it? And if we are selling to the owners left or right of it,
Yes.
what are we selling it for? And then, are they paying, I mean, I guess it would be better to sell it to someone who has a use for it.
Correct. Usually people are expanding their yard.
Right, expanding their yard or whatever, but it's like I was telling you before, there's no incentive for guys like me who's built houses over there. When you own as many lots as I own, and you say, hey, Habitat, I wanna donate these lots to you, and Habitat tells me, well, kick rocks, Dickie, we don't want your lot, we don't even wanna build in Middletown, there's clearly a problem. Why
There
not
is.
even donate them? But in the same token, guys like me can't build on infill lots because it's not even feasible,
Right.
because there's no incentive. You can't build a $80,000
House in a $40,000 neighborhood.
$40,000 neighborhood without some kind of incentive.
Well, then the question becomes, what's the answer to that? Is the answer to provide an incentive to fill that up and try to raise the value of the neighborhood? Or are there other problems in that neighborhood that we need to deal with?
Add a third bedroom to it.
I didn't hear you.
Add a third bedroom to it.
Well, we're not talking about I mean,
Yeah.
like you said.
Well, there's
there-
some neighborhoods that you can't get people out of there with a tractor trailer. They just won't leave that neighborhood. They love it. And if it's bigger house that they need, why not figure out a way to do it?
And that can be one of the answers. One of the things we're going to talk about down the road is we have about 2,000, too many two-bedroom houses. There's a market, but we have way too many. How many of those could be renovated into 3 bedrooms and become productive, attractive houses again for people who want to move to Middletown? And but again, we got to continue down all of our paths and try to figure out where we need to go. But that's, this is one of the areas where we can start. I actually kind of like your idea of let the vacant land sit, but go after especially the out-of-town landlords. Those are very low-hanging fruit, and they're problems for us. We know they're problems for us.
Yeah, the grass is, it's an expense, but the fact of the matter is the vacant properties from absentee landlords is an even bigger problem
Yeah,
for vagrancy and.
crime, everything else, because they don't care.
Now, if that's the case, I know in the past, if I've not mowed a lot, the city will volunteer to help me out
We will.
and help pay for it. They can't do it as cheap as do you not do that with these people?
Yeah, we do charge them.
And do they pay?
Some do, some don't. We assess about $600,000 a year for trash and mowing to properties in this community. We get about between 200 and 250 of it back each year. It's still on the books. But that's about the ratio of year. It goes up a little and down on both sides each year, but it's somewhere around $600,000 that we will lean on properties for mowing, trash, things like that. And again, somewhere around $250,000 that comes in from people paying those assessments.
10,000.
Right.
Is, first off, we need to settle on a neighborhood. That's the first, let's narrow it down to a neighborhood. Okay, then once we've settled on a neighborhood, then we've decided, okay, we're going to do the absentee landlord thing of delinquent taxes. Okay, and then we're gonna have to have something already in place as to, okay, now we own that property, what are we gonna do with it?
Right.
So, you know, you gotta figure out A, B, C, and D, and, you know, what is, I think, let's pick a neighborhood first, so we
I'd
can
be
start.
careful. That would be redlining, wouldn't it?
Again, if it's part of an overall strategy, I think you've got some room to move.
But at that point, we would have to go even further and look even deeper into what we were gonna do with the neighborhood.
Right, at that point, we're going to be going house by house, street by street. When we get to the neighborhood level, it's literally going to be, this one's out of property compliance, this one's tax delinquent, this one's in good shape, this one, we're going to literally be going down the street. How did we take 14th between Main and Route 4, and every house is in good shape, every house is owned or occupied or rented or whatever it is we decide we're doing, how do we make every single house on that street ready to go?
My comment is just in reference to what he was talking about, is if we're focusing on the houses and, you know, what we end up doing with them, you know, then we'll have a problem on the back end with like 14, on 14th to have homes for sale now that have them for a certain dollar never get. So, you know, we choose 14th to Main and we talk about the plan for the houses and the criteria. What do we do to make that a $80,000 home neighborhood? Otherwise, our criteria will be for not.
And that's where you try to put the entire package together. Now, when he's got because if you go down that stretch of 14th, we knock down one house on the right hand about 3/4 of the way down. There's one vacant lot. So I remember it, there's only one vacant lot on that piece. At that point, if we can put everything else in good shape, everything's code compliant, I've paved the streets, we fixed the sidewalks, the alleys are in good shape, we've put adequate street lighting, we've done things to enhance criminal activity, getting rid of criminal activity, now it probably makes sense to put a house there. And so, yeah, a 3-bedroom house, and that's where, okay, now the houses there are worth, I don't know what they're worth, 60, 70, I'm guessing. Now, maybe it does make sense to put an $85,000, or it makes sense to subsidize a $85,000 house there and get it, fill in that last hole, know that 14th now between here and here is done, go on to 15th and talk about what are we doing there. But again, that's where again, if you've decided what you're doing as a general thing with tax delinquent vacant lots, empty houses, code compliance, all this stuff, then as you get down at the house level, you're looking for exceptions, not the rule. You know what the rule is. We have one of these, we normally do this. Is there any reason we should vary on this situation? Because we have something that's fair and equitable and works and enhances the neighborhood, and we will find oddball stuff. We just will. It's Middletown. We have oddball stuff from time to time. We went out a couple times to knock down houses, and there was a second house that there had never been a permit pulled for. There's a second house on the lot. We're like, what is that?
Where are we, and I know it's all over the city.
Yeah,
But where, I mean, you saying 14th has got one house that we've torn down. So
right.
where have we done sort of the majority of our tear downs, in what neighborhoods?
Around 8th and 9th in that area, we've cleared a lot of stuff out. Crawford area, we've done a lot. Baltimore's in Young and Garfield, we've done a lot.
Based on,
Yeah, we do have a map of those.
based on, 2 years from now, the old school site,
Right.
okay? I don't know what they've got that, or they've never come to us or anything to decide what that's gonna be rezoned or redone or whatever. But, you know, I'm thinking maybe that might be the best area, the Crawford, Girard, or not Crawford, but, Baltimore, Girard, to maybe get started there and utilize that school lot as a starting point, because if it's gonna be zoned for residential, we can really set the precedent there of $125,000 houses, $80,000 houses, whatever we decide
Right.
We think that area, and then we can take that and move out down Baltimore Street and so forth.
We have a guy, and it's going to be, again, a little bit further down the road, but there's a guy who did the Grafton neighborhood in Dayton, who did that entire neighborhood. And he is buying the old Carnegie Library from the people in Mexico, thankfully, before it falls down, which it's damn close.
Just a couple weeks away.
Yeah,
First name Tony,
I can't hear you.
first name Tony.
No, Dan, what's Dan's? Mason? And so he wants to make a deal with us to renovate the entire Baltimore neighborhood. He wants some incentives. He's willing to infill on the empty houses. And he's given us a preliminary plan on how it would work and how he did it in Dayton. And I've read through it and I'm like, this is really smart. It's very clever. And they've got price points for everything they do. They've got this first 6 months we do this, second 6 months we do this. This is how we involve the community. This is how we do this. We get 5 or 6 building house models that will fit into the neighborhood, and this is how we're going to pay for them. We get tax delinquent property from the land bank, and we renovate them, and this is how we get them reoccupied. And the idea is, 5 to 7 years from now, that neighborhood, Grafton is at somewhere like 230% of where it was 10 years ago.
I don't know if that's, it's the same thing. 6, 7 years ago, I built over 60 homes in Dayton, on
Yeah.
Salem Avenue. It was called a Hope 6 project.
Yeah,
Okay.
That's
and
HUD.
These houses were, my cost to build them was somewhere around 105, and they were selling them for less than what it cost me to build them. So, but I didn't understand the process of if it was government funded because.
it's HUD funded.
Okay.
That program was HUD funded.
Okay, so why can't we, with that being said, I mean, I thought it was great because it allowed me to come in, build it. Urban League recruited minority builders. They recruited a lot of other contractors, well, mostly minorities, to come in here and contract and bid these jobs and do these jobs. But all these people, I guess when they first started, they were renting them, okay, and they were doing like
They were-
duplexes.
right.
Then they stopped and started building houses. And all those, even today when I go back there, those are home occupied house, and now they're doing another section, but they call them something else, and they done another section in Springfield, the same way. So what Mr. Bohannon was saying in terms like, I heard are they tearing down the old freshman building, or they're gonna tear that down?
Vale?
The Vale.
Yeah, Vale's going to come down.
Yeah, to do that in that area, like, wouldn't that off of Titus, was that a similar thing that the city done, where all those houses,
Yes.
by the blue
Oh,
hoops?
yeah,
Maple Park?
yeah, Maple Park.
Because those were the same houses that I was building in Dayton. So, is that same, what was that project?
That was using home funds. That was a little before my time, but it was using HUD funds in a different pot of money. Hope 6 has been discontinued by HUD, but they are working on other things that look kind of like that. And so again, HUD does have programs out there, but we have to understand what it is we're trying to get done. Because again, they've got 4 or 5 different pots of money. There's some catches on all those. You have to do certain things. You have to there are a lot of, what's the right word I'm looking for? There's a lot of,
All the criteria,
yes,
which covers a variety of things, women, minorities.
right.
Some
And
other things as well.
We
and
have to
how
make
long
sure
they have
that,
to own.
that the criteria we're going to be held under is, again, consistent with what we're trying to do in the bigger picture. Sometimes they are, sometimes they're not. But home's a different pot of home funds. CDBG is another pot of HUD funds. And then they've got the Hope 6, actual Hope 6 program's been discontinued, but they do have other stuff. And so again, that's where you're looking at, what are you trying to do? Is HUD one of the areas we can go to look for some money? Again, it depends on what we're trying to do and whether or not, a lot of times you'll find out one piece of it fits in, we could use HUD funds for this, but not some other piece of it. Again, it's just a lot of rules and regulations, but effective. And there's even, when Cincinnati State came, we did what was called a Section 108 loan to help pay for the construction there. And you can borrow for Middletown, it's up to $3 million of HUD funds, guaranteed by your future CDBG allocations. If you meet the criteria, there's even much more strict criteria about what we're using it as education for lower income families, et cetera, community college. So again, if we can get down this process and say, these are the things we're trying to do, this is the areas we're trying to do it, are they low income census tracts? Are they, single mom? Are they, we'll look at all the criteria that HUD likes to go on, and then we'll go, we hit 3 of these, let's look at this pot of money to help us renovate this and this with the area of improving whatever it is we're trying to do. I'm sorry. Yes. Workforce development, all of that. Yes. Yes, sir.
What has been presented for the Baltimore neighborhood, is that some sort of non-disclosure situation?
It's more of a concept. I can get you some, Ashley, would you try to remind me to get just a little bit of information on Dan's basic concept to send out to the group? It's more of we have this concept, this is how it worked in Dayton, would you like to talk to us? And we said, yes, we would like to talk to you. But it's not this is what we're going to do in Baltimore and this is what we're doing in Garfield. It's more of in Dayton, this is what the home values were and this is how many empty lots and this is how we renovated that neighborhood. We think Baltimore is a lot like that and we could do something like that here. That's been the nature of our discussion so far.
I only ask that just because I feel like some of those ideas might even enhance the conversation we have about that.
I think that's a great idea. Let me see if I can get you a little bit of information and I'll get that out to everybody. So that again, every time if I know about it and I have it, I'll get it out to you. Because anytime, if you're willing to take the time and read and listen and talk and do your own research, you find something cool or a good article, send it to me, I'll get it out to everybody. That's fine. But yeah, the idea is the more we talk and the more we learn and the more we do this together and we see best practices and we look for things that works in Middletown, in our neighborhoods. Mm-hmm.
Well, I was thinking, you got guys like Dickey and you got other developers and so forth in this town. I wish we could come up with some kind of a collaborative where we could bring all those guys together to form a group, an LLC or something to that extent.
Yeah.
That can then take that Baltimore Street vision and let it do it locally instead of going outside the city.
Or do a second. Maybe do that neighborhood, someone else could do Crawford neighborhood, and the city could be working on a third neighborhood, and all of a sudden we're renovating 3 different neighborhoods at the same time. And a lot of the stuff, the stuff with the land bank is so cool because it doesn't need any city money. You pay me $5,000. You pay me $5,000, and then you spend your money renovating the property, and then you pay the realtor, and then you get the profits. But all I do, my only cost is overseeing, did you do what you were supposed to do? And you're going to have to pull permits, and you're going to have to get Larry Tuttle to go out and inspect it. So I got a pretty good indication whether or not you've done what you're supposed to do. And that's no city money involved in that.
One other question I have is, what is are we, like some of these 2-bedroom eyesores, or say someone bought them at a tax sale that ain't doing no job
Right.
to them. I've heard that we are buying, or the city is buying these properties from these people and tearing them down. And if so, why? Why are we doing that?
We have almost never purchased houses. If it is, it's for a specific house for a specific reason, that it's on a corner and it's causing a traffic problem. It has something other to do with the fact that that house is a 2-bedroom house. There's something else that it's been a drug house for 10 years and I simply can't get anything else done. We've done that a couple times where we have, we just bought the bar and just removed the building. Because the problem we had with a couple of those bars is we'd run the guy out, take his liquor license. Well, the bar's sitting there and the bar stools are sitting there and the glasses are sitting there and all I need is a liquor license and booze and I'm in business just like you were.
Sometimes not even liquor license.
Yeah. And so, yeah, the answer, but I mean, we have bought very few houses. Now, I will say that we will look at some. I've told council, I said, if there's any house in this city that's worth under $8,000 to $10,000, it probably doesn't need to be in our housing stock. I mean, if it's an $8,000
And that's one thing
house.
With this latest round of funding with the land bank is that, you know, depending on where it is in the
But it's not our,
ownership bank.
but it's not our land.
We're not,
You know what I'm saying?
it's
It's
the
like,
county, right?
Yeah.
you know, like I was saying, why can't we form our own land bank
Oh,
and have more control of what
well,
we do?
The answer is the Ohio law creates all these only for the land bank, but what I have the ability to do with council's permission is, once it's through the land bank and all those legal things have been done to it, they will donate title to the city, but we have to have a reason to take it. We have to, again, I don't want to take 50 houses and we don't have a plan. Why are we renovating them? Why are we knocking them down? Why are we get to the end of this and I go, anytime I'm on this street and we're doing this, we should try to take title to that and give it to Steve to renovate. Then now I have a reason to take title. And we have the ability to take any title from the land bank. They will just give us title at any
And I
time.
agree, but I've seen at least 5 houses that were structurally good, I mean, beautiful houses that was in a land bank, and when I called, I said, hey, I'll buy these, I'll give you a written contract that I'll remodel them to whatever standard, and they said, no, we're tearing them down.
Right, because that's
That
all,
made no sense.
but that's all the Butler Land Bank has done to this point. They do not do anything for renovation at this point. That's what I've got to get Don Dixon and TC to change the ability of the land bank to do that.
But again, why can't we do it as a city? Why can't we have our own land bank? and
It's
do-
just not the way Ohio's set up. That's the way, yeah. Yeah,
Doug, we talked about this property over on Aberdeen that got torn down here a few years back.
Yeah.
Nice lot, nice neighborhood, $120,000 house could go in there perfectly, but it's got a lot of taxes on it.
yeah.
Now, see, that might be a prime property, because there is a resale value available to that. That might be a property that you would take as a vacant lot to run it through the land bank.
Right.
Is there a reason why we haven't thought of doing it on that particular property?
Because again, our policy is up to this point has been, we don't take title to land. But there's no, if it's like this, we do this, the answer is we don't take title.
Well, we could always work out a deal with Dickey where he would give us a promissory note that he would take the property off our hands as soon as we get title.
We can, but up to this point, that's not been the policy of council up to this point.
So when a property is torn down in a land bank, where do that property go? I mean, it just stays in the land bank? And nobody, so the county owns that property? and-
The land bank, which is
Well,
it's
the land
a,
bank owns that property, but nobody can, they can't.
they can't buy it, they can't sell it, they can't do anything to it. It's dead land.
So it's dead land that's serving no purpose.
That's correct.
That's not doing any good then. I mean, that's not doing any good.
Well, that's ultimately where we're.
That's why we're having these conversations, is that,
Do we want the city to take possession of that so that we can then turn around and give it to you or sell it to you?
Right.
And how do we get a program in place to?
but right, what they don't want to do is take title to those 500 lots, and then there are problems.
Right.
And that, again, what's no plan? We've had no plan up to this point to do on a comprehensive level.
It was much more reactionary, just in terms of.
Yes.
Light, dealing with the foreclosures, working through the NSP programs,
Right.
things like that, to address these areas, and now, ideally, it'd be nice to have a plan ahead of time.
But that's exactly why we're having these conversations, is to try to say, if we have a lot like this, then should we create a program like that so that you can do those types of things? Well, if we get all that in place, then we go to TC and we go to Don Dixon and we say, we have this incredible program. If it's any of these 5, this is what happens in each of those 5 scenarios. We need you to start turning those lots over and letting us do it, because we're going to do these good things. We're going to have taxes coming back in, and you, county, are going to get a portion of those. You need to get out of our way and let us do our thing. But again, right now, we don't have that plan. That's the whole point of being here and doing all this, is to take each piece of this and put it back together in a way so that, again, 9 times out of 10, when we see that, we know we do this. And the 10th time, we go, this one's weird. What do we do? But that's exactly what we're trying to get to, is what do we do with the delinquents? And then after we get them, what do we do? If it's vacant, if it's in good shape, if it's in bad shape, do we tear down? Do we consolidate lots? Again, if we can talk through those as we go through each one, then now I have a reason to say, every time we see one of these vacants, we're going to take it, and because we know, it's only going to be for one of 4 things: vacant land, vacant house, out-of-town landlord, owner, whatever. And we know what we're going to do with all 4 of those, so take it.
So is it two different, when you see a house boarded up and it's tore down, it's the county land bank, correct?
Almost always.
Okay. And so how is the city selling the lots that they tear down next to the homeowner?
We have, on
You
occasion,
didn't take the title.
and we can take the title. And there have been situations where we're mowing it and we're not getting, we're just dead paying to mow it. And the next door neighbor says, I'd really like to expand my yard for my kids and put a swing set. And I go, well, then I'll go ahead and take title of that one. Council will sell it to you for $500, and now I don't have to mow that one anymore.
Okay. I didn't know if
Yeah.
it was two different things going on here. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But we're not actively marketing that stuff.
And I apologize, I don't hear very well, and so sometimes I'll tap, and if you can talk up a little bit.
Also the opportunities that we see when we're here in the council
Yes.
minutes, that we're selling, you sold
So,
the
yeah,
property and that.
for $500.
Approving it
Yep.
for 500 or
Yeah.
the case with the tire people, that, those kind of opportunities.
Yep. If someone comes to us and asks us, and we can get title, and we can get it off our books, and we're not paying to mow it, yeah, it costs us about $500 a year for a typical residential lot to mow it for the season. And so, again, we're willing to split it between the 2 homeowners. What you often find, though, is you got rental, and both landlords go, why would I mow more stuff? I don't want it. Now that lot's really dead, unless somebody's going to build on it, and then depends on where it is, depends on how big it is. Can we put a house on it? Can we make it competitive? On and on and on. Again, if we can answer those questions, then we know.
And we do have a minimum building square footage.
We do.
In some, what is it, 1,400?
It depends on the district. Ashley, minimum building,
I want to say it's 10,000 square feet.
10,000 square feet?
no, for the houses on certain lots, it depends on the district, doesn't it?
It does, it depends on the district.
Yeah. Right. And
A
so,
lot of these houses that were shotgun houses, narrow and deep, there's just no way, in today's, with our code now, we probably can't use that lot for building.
and that used to be, the answer is we did not want those, the code was written in a way we did not want those to be rebuilt on.
We didn't want that, we didn't, and that's where, because when, in the second ward at the time, I was the only one building. And then Habitat came along, so on a 40-foot infill lot, you were putting basically a straight shot house that maybe had a hip roof, 3-bedroom, 2-bath, on there. And then they came back and said, well, hey, we don't want these houses, which was still a good starter home. So now we want you to put some brick on it.
Right.
We want you to do a bump out on it.
Right.
Well, by the time you've done all that,
There's no way you're going to ever build that.
exactly.
Right.
You know,
And that, again, that was an older policy of,
Oh, okay.
but the policy is still in place.
it is until we get through this process.
Right.
And that's, because I didn't want to change anything until we know why we're changing it and what we're changing it to.
Right.
But the answer is, we can go back to council and say, especially in this neighborhood, let's change, either we change the district from an R4 to an R2 so that you could do something different, or we change the standard for that district that would allow, you know what I'm saying?
Right.
Once we know what we're trying to do, then we can look at this and say, can you do it with that? And if not, what's the right answer? Is it a variance? Is it a whatever? What's the process? Well, subject to the fact that we don't have the vacant lots and the vacant houses and all that other stuff laid out, does anybody conceptually have a problem with us moving forward with tax delinquent? We're not going to do this because we don't have anything set up, but the concept of starting to foreclose on tax delinquent properties on a way that makes sense as we get further down the road, I think we have to.
Oh, yeah. We're losing money.
And we will continue to lose money. Like I said, we will probably not get that delinquent water and that delinquent tax, but if you could turn that property over the next year and turn it over to somebody who could pay that, then we are in better, long-term, we're in better shape.
You know, what's the first step, I guess? If you go to county commission, you really need to have a plan in place.
And that's why we're doing all this, because I need to go to Don and say, you need to let us do it, and here's why, and here's the benefit to the county and the benefit to Middletown. Because right now it's anecdotal. If you let us do this stuff, it's going to get better. How? How much?
They want to see some proof.
Yeah, show me. Why? Well, I think I don't care what I think. Yeah. You want to say, no, here's our plan. Build this many houses here. Here's the value of those homes that we expect them to be. Here's the property tax. Here's the county share of that property tax.
How does it start? I mean, you don't just open up the floodgates, you do it
Very controlled.
just
Yeah.
incrementally.
Yep.
That's what we talked about, focusing on your lottery system, figure out where we're gonna.
Yeah. Where we're going to come, because especially for now, we have limited resources. I can only fix so many sidewalks. I can only renovate so many houses each year. And so if we want to start doing it, then we can start designing. If we're going to do these 6 blocks, what actually is needed in those 6 blocks? What's the condition of the pavement? What's the condition of the sewers? Condition of the sidewalk? How many houses are out of compliance? Excuse me, with our code compliance, with our property maintenance? How many vacant lots are there? Should we be building there? Then you start putting that together. Well, now all of a sudden, we know what we're doing on those 6 blocks, 10 blocks, whatever it is. Now I know, here's the 8 that are tax delinquent. Let's get those up front and start moving. And if 2 of them are homeowners, hopefully we've already got a plan. If we're going to move people, homeowners, that are never going to catch up, I want to be able to say, here's what we can do to help you. We're going to renovate this house. We're going to do some things.
Is that
But,
the same,
go
is
ahead.
that the same with commercial, like with downtown picking up and booming?
Mhm.
You know, like y'all tearing out old, is that a land bank property that the?
No, that one's ours.
Okay, so that's the city.
Yep.
So with the property, with, everybody sees that downtown is picking up. But
Little by little.
At the same time, you still got
A lot of empty.
property that's eyesores. Are we doing the same in terms of that with downtown and the property owners downtown, and does the land bank apply to commercial plots as well?
It has not up to this point. We are one of the only land banks in Ohio that does not do commercial and industrial land. They are looking at that. We're looking at the paperboard site. We've done the preliminary work. There are 64 parcels or something like that at the old paperboard site. We've done the preliminary work to line that up for the land bank. They are talking about maybe allowing us to take that through the land bank. We've been mowing that paperboard site for, 5 years or something like that. We have like $90,000 in mowing on that property.
We own this, what is it, on England? I mean, it's a property, what is it, down by, that the roof is all caved in, but it's like it's a blight. What are we doing in terms of, because I see all the stuff that we're doing for the people who wants to invest in downtown Middletown with abatements and giving some kind of incentive downtown, but then we still got all these blighted properties that's commercial that needs to be done also.
All true.
So I just don't, I just want to know if we're gonna
I can't
not just
use,
homeownership, I mean, residential, but commercial as well.
not through the land bank, because Butler County Land Bank doesn't do commercial and industrial property. So it's using the right tool for the right job, again. I can initiate tax foreclosure, then what do we do with that one? Because that's the problem we get. Here's the thing that happens with commercial, especially commercial and industrial properties. You take Rose Furniture, you take Orman, you take the studio, they all forfeited, and we're going to go to the state of Ohio. They were just going to forfeit for back taxes. And so if we do nothing, we just let it, and if the state of Ohio gets it, all they do is they say, I have the title if anybody wants it. They don't maintain it, they don't mow it, they just hold the title. And so Rose Furniture, we have two structural engineers say it's about to collapse. So if it's sitting at the state of Ohio and it collapses, the people on both sides come and go, there's nobody that owns this city, you got to help us out. And we go in and we help them, and we're heroes. We took title to it, and the exact same thing happened. We're idiots. Why do you own that property? You guys are just effing idiots. You didn't even maintain it. Well, no, we didn't. Same thing happened at Orman. Forfeited to the state. We take it. It collapses onto the railroad track. One of our biggest employers says, I got a train coming on Saturday. We're going to lose hundreds of thousands of dollars if you don't get it off the tracks. If the state of Ohio owns it, they come to the city and they go, help us. And we help them, and we're heroes. We own it. We're idiots.
So then what do you do?
Again, what is it? Yeah. We're idiots no matter what we do. When there's no profit to be made in the endeavor, that's when the city gets involved. That's when government gets involved. But those are the types of things, could I seize a bunch of commercial property? Yes, I can. And then they go, why aren't you maintaining it? Well, I don't have any money to maintain it.
Really money to tear it down. To Dickie's point earlier, are we going to get into some of the carrot side of things, maybe?
We are.
The tax abatement.
Yes.
In CRA districts.
Yes.
Because that's been used in like OTR and in Dayton and things like that, where
Yeah. Property
provide
taxes.
an incentive for someone to improve it, whether it's.
And Dickie and I were talking about, with infill construction, you waive the tap-in fees. Those are easy. There are things we can do that are simple and easy and quick. There are others, then the question goes beyond that. If we're waiving the tap-in fees and we're doing that, do we then incentivize, do we kick in $10,000 for the construction of the house? I think that's a harder question.
That's a little tougher, but yeah. An abatement if the school's on board, because they're going to get taxes that they wouldn't be getting otherwise.
I
because
just didn't,
they're paying.
I guess my thing is that I wanted to be, I own all these infill lots, I'm paying taxes, I've owned them for years, and when the market was good, it was good, because I was building on them.
Yeah.
But then when it came to all the you gotta put this certain house on this certain lot, and now I can't build that same house, that same starter home anymore, and it costs me $8,000 before I get out of the ground. So I'm just paying taxes on vacant lots. There's no incentive to build on it, because I can't build a $80,000 house in a
$40,000 neighborhood.
neighborhood. So what's the quick fix to guys like me, the builders, and that want to build in that area without asking the city for, I'm not asking the city for
Yeah.
an incentive. I'm asking the city to say, okay, hey, I've already paid tons of taxes on this property. Why don't y'all waive this? You don't have to once you waive this, and why don't you change some of these requirements to build a decent house? You know what I mean?
Now let me muddy the water some more, because that's why this is so hard, and that's why we haven't solved it for long. 70% of our homes are starter homes. So do I want you building a bunch of new starter homes when we already have too many in the city? What happens right now is with 70% starter homes, we fill them all up, they have kids or their career gets better and they want to move up, either in size or dollars, they have to leave the city. I don't have any housing for them. And so we have to give some thought as to how that works. If I'm at 70% and I put 200 new starter homes in, now I'm at 72% starter homes. And so how does that fit in? And so the answer is maybe we get rid of some crappy starter homes over here that are in terrible, $20,000 home over here, and we build an $80,000 home over here. When we trade, we keep the percentage, or we take more
Or we work to lift the value of those $40,000 homes to where.
to where 80,000 makes sense again. But those are all and that's why, I showed everybody at the last one, that 1963 master plan that said these areas are bad and these areas are really bad. They're the same. And it's because this is hard stuff. This is hard stuff. And so if we're smart, I'm going to try, and with your help, we're going to try to figure this out so that we have the answer to, because you're right, if you have 50 lots or however many you have no hope for those right now. Today, you have no hope for those.
Can't give them one.
Right. And so what is the long-term answer? Because that's not good for you, that's not good for us. But what is the answer? Is the answer to clear out a little more so you can put bigger homes and, do we redo a street? I could wipe out everything and consolidate lots. I don't know. But how do we do it in a way? Can I raise values of the houses so that you can put the $80,000 starter home? I don't know. That's where we got to, this is hard. This is hard stuff.
Do you happen to have one of those purple books around still? I was looking at the one I happen to have, and I was surprised by how close the data is still in there, because it rated neighborhoods and
Yeah.
conditions and.
I don't know if I still do or not. I haven't seen it in about 10 years.
Yeah, it's at least 10 years old.
And we used to have a couple copies, but I have not seen them for a lot of years. If you want to get it, drop it off. I'll scan it and send it out. So, like I said, we'll talk more as we get into some of these other pieces with the vacant land, the vacant houses and stuff. Do we start looking at tax foreclosure as part of our thing? So, any other comments tonight? If not, it's 7 o'clock. I want to be respectful of your time. We will be heading into vacant houses at the next one.
Literally?
Huh?
Literally?
We can. But we'll talk about vacant houses. What do we do? It says there's, 3,000 of them. Some of them are rentals. Some of them are normal, vacation homes. We've got a mix of stuff that is for sale and it hasn't sold yet. But the ones that are truly vacant and not being utilized in any way, what do we think about that as a community? I appreciate your time. I'll keep things going along. Oh, the last thing I wanted to say is in your packet, I think they have this one too, don't they? Mm-hmm. Yeah. This came out, again, I got this about a week or two ago. It talks about the cost of foreclosed abandoned houses on the neighborhood, what the impact on crime is, and what the impact of property values around it is. Interesting reading, and I think there's, interesting. If you want to take 5 minutes and read through it between now and then. And I appreciate your time and have a good night, and thank you.